In today's video, I'm going to be giving you a track guide for the latest round in the Manufacturers Championship, along with the strategy that will be run in this combination, as all three groups, whether you're in GT1, GT2 or GT3, you are all running the same race with the exact same amount of laps. So let's get into this and go into a track guide. So it's 15 laps, racing soft in the race, and you do need to make a pit stop as the race information states that. So there will be a pit stop required. So with 15 laps, you're going to be pitting anywhere from lap 7 on to lap 8, I would predict. Probably lap 7 with the fuel going down. It's on ×2 fuel, so your fuel will get gradually lighter in this combination. And that will obviously make your tyres better for the second stint. But one thing to factor in for this combination, it is a massive slipstream track. If you've never driven this before, as obviously it's not been used in dailies that much, this track relies on slipstream. So if the car ahead stays out one lap longer and you've got the tyres to last the lap, then probably a good idea to follow that car, as losing the slipstream on this track is not a good idea, especially with the custom slipstream on. So let's get into a track guide and try and help you out in terms of going faster. Now, I didn't spend very long on this. This is not the fastest lap you'll ever see, but it's basically there just to give you a rough idea of the brake markers and stuff like that. So going into turn 1, we are looking for the 50 board there. We're braking pretty much just before that 50 board, and we are going to go down to 4th gear here and try and rotate it in. Now, I'm not going to go down to 3rd gear because I want to come out the corner in 4th gear, and if you go to 3rd, you then have to upshift to 4th, so it's just a bit slow and not the best way to do it. So staying in 4th gear and then getting on that power, trying to stay as close to that wall on the entry as possible, and then on the exit, just trying to make sure we do not hit that wall on the exit. So now working our way down into the next braking zone, some top quite high speeds reached at this track and some heavy braking zones. We're going to be braking just past the 150 board that you can see above our head there. Now, you are going to brake a little bit past it. If you are in a slipstream, you're going to brake a little bit early because you will be carrying a lot of speed into this braking zone. And this is possibly one of the trickiest sections of track that you're going to come across in Gran Turismo, in my opinion. So you're aiming to get the right-hand tyre over the curb on the entry here. Now you can see that using the curb as our guide, over the curb there, and then you slowly letting the car rotate now into this next part. Now it's very difficult this because you can't be aggressive on the throttle. You just have to let the car coast in, and then start putting the throttle in again, right hand tyre over the curb. Now again, into this next section, the rear of the car wants to step out. You can see the ghost in front almost losing it there, and your right hand tyre needs to go over the curb, and then you've got to try and get the car swung in for the next part of the track. So into this exit here, you're going to really attack aggressively over the curb. You're going to get that left-hand tyre right over the curb. As long as your right-hand tyre stays within the curb, I think just touching it, you shouldn't get a penalty there. And then you're into the next right-hand corner, which we're going to use the 50 board as a reference for our initial entry, but you're going to actually brake pretty much dead level with that turning in board there. You can see as we're coming up to it, we're on the brakes there. And now we're going to try and rotate it in here as fast as we can. So down to 3rd gear, just let the car rotate, coast a little bit, and then be careful you don't go too early on the throttle, because too early and you'll be in the wall on the left. Now, this next section is completely flat out. It's all about smooth inputs, just making sure you don't clip the wall or anything like that as you go through the tunnel. And again, in the race situation, this is a part of the track you're going to have to be very, very careful of when you're picking up that slipstream and you're getting some really high top speeds into this next braking zone. You will need to brake slightly earlier, so factor that into your braking reference. So we're using the 150 as our braking reference, and we're going to pretty much brake dead on that, but do realize with that long straight, you're going to be going probably over 10 miles an hour faster into the braking zone. So be very, very cautious. You see there onto the brakes, pretty much just underneath the 150 board. Now, keep it in a straight line as you brake into the corner, and then you want to start rotating in, and you want your right-hand tyre to get as close to the curb as you can without actually getting up onto the curb. So let that car rotate, and the best way of doing this is squaring it off so you can get on the power early as you exit this corner, and then you can really carry the momentum up the hill now into this final section. And again, quite a little tricky section, this next section. If you get it right, it feels brilliant. If you get it slightly wrong, you lose a lot of time. So we're using the 50 board as our reference again for the next braking, and you can see pretty much braking as soon as we get underneath that 50 board. And now it's about getting the right hand tyre as close to the barrier on the right hand side as possible. You want to get it rotating in and just let the car gradually rotate. Don't be too aggressive on the throttle. And then again, into this next left-hand corner, you want to get the left-hand tire right up to the wall on the left-hand side. And you want to keep it to the left-hand side here. This is where I make a little mistake. I go a little bit too aggressive on the throttle, and you can see I've compromised myself. Ideally, you want to be coming from further to the left, which will widen the line in for this right-hand corner. So you can see a dab of brakes there to try and put the weight on the front of the car, because I've gone a little bit too narrow in here. And now you can see I'm having to play with the throttle a lot, lifting off, back on the throttle, and that's just going to lose us a massive amount of time. Now, for this next left-hand corner, I really do not like this corner. I use the 50 board as a reference. You can see there, getting on the brake, and you want to swing it in from as wide as possible, because then you can get on that throttle as early as possible. And it's a very, very tricky corner to get right, but once you get the hang of it, you will gain a lot of time there. I think on that last sector alone, probably lost 3 or 4 tenths, because I was all over the place on that last few corners. But if you get it right, you can really gain a lot of time. It's all about carrying the smooth lines through them final corners. You can see we go over the line for a 54.1. It's not an amazing lap, but it's not a terrible lap. It should be good enough to give you a rough guide of how to drive this track. So let's have another watch of that from the chase camera with the kilometers an hour, and you're going to be able to see now from the chase camera what we're talking about getting close to them walls. You can see on the exit here, you've got to just brush up against it, try not to hit it. You can get away with hitting that wall. You will lose a tiny bit, but yeah, if you're on a qualifying lap and you've only got 1 lap left and you do hit it, don't bail your lap, because you still can get a reasonable lapping with a little graze against that wall. So again, using that 150 and then into this really tricky section. It's all about letting the car coast, rotate, and then be as aggressive as you can on the front. You can see the rear trying to step out there, and then swing it over these curbs, using as much track limits as you physically can for that section of track. And then we come into this reasonably fast corner, down to 3rd gear, using that right board to turn right. That's what we use as our reference. You can use a 50 board, so it's a mixture of using the 50 as your like warning sign you're going to get on the brakes, but then the actual signpost to turn right is where you're getting dead on the brakes. Then it's just completely flat out through here. There's nothing really to do through here. It's just flat out. Like I say though, be very, very cautious when you're in a slipstream through this section of track, because you will find that you will build up insane speeds on this straight, and then coming into this braking zone, it's going to be very, very tricky in the race to get that exact spotted. Now again, pit lane entrance is another thing to be very cautious of. You might want to practice that, because the pit lane on this track is not anywhere near the start finishing line, so you come out the pits there before you even finish the lap. So do remember that when you're pitting, the pit lane entrance will need a little bit of practice here, especially with the 3-second pit lane penalty. I presume that it's going to be active on this track, so you might have to be very, very cautious on the line that you take in there. You can see here how we slightly messed up this section of track, got a little bit out of shape, and then that just costs you all the way through the final 2 corners. So definitely 2 to 3 tenths lost there. We should be able to get this lap down to a 53.5, 53.6, I think. It's not my strongest track, but hopefully by tomorrow we can creep into the 53s, and 53.5, 53.6 should be doable. But yeah, hopefully this will help you out. Get subscribed to the channel if you haven't already done so. Hit that like button. It all helps me out. And hopefully this guide will help you get a better position in your race. Take care, everyone.